Chapter 12, 58. Fang Yuan versus 5, 1/2. Translator, Atlas Studios. Editor, Atlas Studios. Despite becoming an immortal just recently, Bai Ningbing had some advantages over normal Gu immortals. First of all, she possessed one of the 10 extreme physiques, Northern Dark Ice Soul Physique, which was the best for cultivating ice and snowpath. Similarly to He Lu Lan's Great Strength True Martial Physique, her Dao marks surpassed most rank 6 Gu immortals in the same condition. Secondly, she had become the owner of Baixiang Grotto Heaven. She obtained Baixiang's true inheritance, and had all the Gu worms left behind by Baixiang, among which were rank 7 immortal Gu as well. However, there were no rank 8 immortal Gu. Baixiang's status in history was slightly inferior to Heifan, but the joint forces of the 5 Xiangs surpassed Heifan by a lot. Bai Ningbing's flaw was that she was not familiar with the immortal Gu and the immortal killer moves. She often failed when activating them, which caused danger of backlash. Nurture, use, and refinement. Using Gu was one of the 3 important aspects of Gu Master cultivation. To get familiar with her gains, Bai Ningbing had to spend a long period of time in practicing them. As such, she was a long way away from being able to use them freely in real battle. But at this time, Bai Ningbing's flaw was effectively concealed. Because she had Yingwu Shi, He Lu Lan, Tai Bai Yun Sheng, and Shi Nu beside her. Because of their protection, Bai Ningbing had the time to use her immortal killer move unhurriedly. Fang Yuan's information regarding Bai Ningbing was lacking. On one hand, he thought Bai Ningbing was like Tai Bai Yun Sheng and He Lu Lan, whose battle strength rose after receiving benefits from Shadow Sect. On the other hand, Fang Yuan had used Qi Lux Sensation many times before and had sensed Bai Ningbing, but he could not know matters concerned with Baixiang Grotto Heaven and so on. Fang Yuan had thus greatly underestimated Bai Ningbing's true battle strength. If he knew of the truth, he might not have chosen Tai Bai Yun Sheng as the first target and marked Bai Ningbing instead. But Fang Yuan had always lacked information path methods. So how could he know about Baixiang Grotto Heaven? Fang Yuan had been reborn, but he was not all-knowing. Bai Ningbing's gaze could actually freeze any targets in her sight, slowing down their mobility. This was Baixiang's method. After Fang Yuan realized the strangeness, he immediately took measures, flying back and concealing his traces. Visibility was very poor in the Licorice Regional Wall. After Fang Yuan flew back, he immediately disappeared from Bai Ningbing's sight. Bai Ningbing clenched her teeth. Fang Yuan was an old fox, seeing through the limits of her move in just a short while. Even with such a trump card, he doesn't force himself to take risks. Unfortunately, we have especially formulated a battle tactic for this. Bai Ningbing felt regret. The move Fang Yuan used to break the Super Gu formation in Eastern Sea was so powerful that it gave chills to Yingwu Xie, Bai Ningbing, and the rest. On the way, they had discussed about defensive measures against this method of Fang Yuan. However, Fang Yuan did not use that move the whole time, making the prior preparations of Yingwu Xi and the rest useless. Unfortunately, I have only just obtained Baixiang's true inheritance. This killer move has its limits, but other killer moves can be used together with it to make up for this limit. Bai Ningbing had barely been able to activate this killer move. If she tried to activate another immortal killer move on top of this, she was almost certain to fail. Bai Ningbing was not Fang Yuan. Fang Yuan could do many tasks at once and use multiple immortal killer moves at the same time, but Bai Ningbing had very low attainment in this aspect. Fang Yuan had retreated and hidden himself, but he still held the initiative and upper hand. Under this situation, Bai Ningbing could not take the risk. Once she failed, their arrangement would be in disorder, creating a weakness which Fang Yuan could exploit. Bai Ningbing understood Fang Yuan very well. He absolutely would not give up such an exposed weakness. Even Bai Ningbing was in deep admiration of Fang Yuan's ability to grasp opportunities in a fight. Fang Yuan's scales have been frozen by my gaze. Once he recovers, with his speed, it will be difficult for me to lock onto him with my sight, Bai Ningbing pondered. Fang Yuan's burst of speed in ancient sword dragon form was astonishing by itself, adding on sword escape and his sword path Dao marks. Even the rank 7 expert Yelui Kunxing had died at his hands. Bai Ningbing knew she had been able to use her freezing sight earlier because Fang Yuan was unprepared. Now that Fang Yuan was on guard, when he used that astonishing speed again, this immortal killer move's effectiveness would decrease drastically. It seems I can only change my tactics, Bai Ningbing immediately decided. She had no choice but to change. Previously, when Fang Yuan showed his speed, he had almost killed Tai Bai Yunsheng. If Bai Ningbing did not change her tactics and continued to use freezing sight, the one to die might be her. The situation was perilous. Bai Ningbing retreated behind Shi Nu while saying to Ying Wuxi, "Protect me, I am going to use that move." Bai Ningbing and Ying Wuxi had formed a new alliance, and with a formidable enemy in front of them, both sides had informed each other of some of their trump cards. Thus, Ying Wuxi understood without needing Bai Ningbing to explain. He nodded solemnly. "Okay, use that move. Let us take care of your safety." He immediately commanded Shi Nu, "Even if you have to sacrifice yourself, you need to protect Bai Ningbing." Shi Nu was loyal to Ying Wuxi. He immediately nodded at this command with no hesitation. "Relax, he has been hit by my freezing sight, according to the flaw you mentioned of the sovereign immortal body. If he does not have a specific method to counter it, he will need about a dozen breaths of time to recover completely." Bai Ningbing spoke with confidence. Ying Wuxi nodded. "That's good then." He did not doubt Bai Ningbing. Bai Xiang's methods had their own originality. It was not easy to specifically target an immortal killer move. Often one had to fight numerous times, getting familiar with the immortal killer move, and go through a long period of deduction to create a method that countered the immortal killer move. There was a low probability of Fang Yuan having a method to counter it. But right at this time, in the sights of the five immortals, a white ray of light flashed by. "Careful. It is the dragon breath. Defend, protect Bai Ningbing and Tai Bai Yunsheng." Rays of sword-light dragon breath attacked, recreating the previous sword-light rain. For a moment, Ying Wuxi and the group had their hands tied dealing with them. Bai Ningbing was using all her concentration in activating her immortal killer move, while Tai Bai Yunsheng was unconscious from the severe injuries. As such, for the remaining three other immortals, the pressure on them had amplified suddenly, and they did not even have enough strength to strike back. Fang Yuan circled around Ying Wuxi and the rest from afar, breathing out dragon breath. Rays of sword-light dragon breath shot from all directions towards Ying Wuxi and the others. His sword dragon body was still covered in thin ice. Bai Ningbing's freezing sight was quite effective. Naturally, the main reason was Fang Yuan's sovereign immortal body. Despite transforming into an ancient sword dragon, his Dao marks still did not have repulsion to different Dao marks. This created a disadvantage. Like when Bai Ningbing's freezing sight affected Fang Yuan, it would not be weakened by Fang Yuan's Dao marks and could strike with all its might. Fortunately, the ancient sword dragon had a tough body and strong vitality. Otherwise, a human body might have been directly frozen to death. Fang Yuan was breathing dragon breath, suppressing Ying Wuxi and the rest, while quickly recovering. He was influenced by the freezing sight, but healing was also rather easy. Because his Dao marks did not have repulsion, even using mortal methods repeatedly could display effect. It was not like Tai Bai Yunsheng, whom, after being injured, could not be healed easily. Fang Yuan continuously breathed out dragon breath, probing and suppressing Ying Wuxi and the others. He quickly discovered. Bai Ningbing was being heavily protected by Ying Wuxi and the others. Unless he made his way in through brute force, he had no other routes to get to Bai Ningbing. Activating an immortal killer move, huh? Fang Yuan thought heavily. Since she was being so greatly protected by Ying Wuxi and the others, Bai Ningbing was definitely preparing an extraordinary immortal killer move. Thus, as soon as he recovered, he directly dived in. He was not restricted in the Licorice Regional Wall and could move freely. When he burst with his speed, even Fang Yuan himself was not able to have complete control. It was simply like a white ray of light. Ying Wuxi and the rest did not even have time to call out when Fang Yuan penetrated through their defensive lineup and charged in. Binding Bing broke out in cold sweat, almost failing her killer move's activation. Hei Lulan was heavily injured. Her left arm was completely gone, and even her left torso was injured. The injuries were so frightening that one could see her ribs. Blood spurted out like a fountain and soon accumulated into a pool below Hei Lulan. The injury was covered with down marks, causing the blood to flow unceasingly. If this continued, Hei Lulan would be the first person to die. Under this critical situation, Hei Lulan immediately chose to transform into an immortal zombie. Immortal zombies could bear this level of injury. The warm and bright red blood immediately turned into cold and gloomy green blood. Blood was still flowing outside, but the speed had reduced by countless times. Ha! Hei Lulan knelt in one leg, taking a huge gasp of breath, but her lips were curled up. She was actually laughing. On the other hand, Fang Yuan got a peculiar feeling. I was actually hit. Not bad from Hei Lulan. The dragon claw he used to rip apart Hei Lulan's left arm still had traces of flesh and blood. Right now, this flesh and blood slowly turned into a blood-colored fire, which followed Fang Yuan's dragon claw to his scales. Immortal killer. Move flesh blood. Fire. This fire used flesh and blood as the fuel. As long as there was flesh and blood, the fire wouldn't stop. Without any methods to counter it, it simply would not be extinguished. Moreover, the stronger the flesh and blood were, the brighter and more powerful the fire would become. Fang Yuan's ancient sword dragon transformation had instead become the perfect target for flesh-blood fire. However, Fang Yuan reacted extremely quickly. He immediately dispelled his transformation killer move and returned to his human form. He activated a time path healing immortal Gemo man as before.